Hello, 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 ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of the best show that I do. I do many different shows and many different recordings and webinars, but I love this one. This one is my most exciting show because I get to meet and go inside the business mind with people that I consider superchargers in their universe and in their world. And I will tell you, the guy we got coming up today is no joke. He is absolutely one of the best, if not the best, recruiter for engineers and staffing experts for engineers that I have ever had a chance to experience and see. And it's probably the best you're ever going to have a chance to experience and see too. Let me tell you why. Ahmed cartoon stays at the top of his game. He's always looking for opportunities. He's always looking for what's going on, not just in the engineering world, but he's looking at the broader picture of what's coming down the pike and what's going to be a future thing that people have to be concerned about and working with. I am blessed to work with him on an advisory council for a similar client that we work with. And he has never, ever, ever been less than the most impressive in everything he says, everything he does, everything he brings to that opportunity. And I'm so pleased that he decided to come on the show today. And today we're going to get inside the head, inside that business mind of one of the greatest recruiters in the engineering world today. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, let me introduce you to Ahmed Kurtom.
Hey Marvin, how are you?
How's it going, my man? Thanks for coming on the show. Good to see you.
Thank you so much for having me. I know this has been a long time coming, and so um, I'm so delighted to be here and feel honored and privileged to be on your show.
So tell us about you, Ahmed. What makes you so great at what you do?
Boy, I mean, Marvin, first of all, thanks for the warm, very nice thing that you said about me. Um, a little bit about myself. I am the founder of Design Force. I have been really passionate about the built environment from a very early age. And one of the things that I've really focused my attention on really early on in my career is really zooming in on an industry that thrives on individual and team collaboration that gets us to an outcome in the built environment where we all use it every day. We spend a whole bunch of our time using the built environment, whether it's while we're driving to work, or while we're metroing to work, or whether we're using the water fountain at a park, or whether we are doing our work in an office building, or whether we are, um, you know, even going out for a trip and finding ourselves at a hotel or an amusement resort. So I've been dedicating my life around building and keeping great teams together. And at a high level, that's sort of what my career is about and what we're doing here at Design Force.
Awesome, awesome. So, you know, what inspired you? If you had to say, there was a moment where I knew this is what I was going to do. This is what I was going to be about. I was going to be about making sure that the right people got into the right positions in the right companies to make the world a better place. When did you know this was going to be your thing?
Well, I attended the University of Maryland College Park, and while attending the A. Clark School of Engineering, I had an opportunity to be able to go to a lot of advisors. And they gave me a lot of great career tips and techniques and things that I needed to keep in mind as I was coming up for my graduation. I think after having a chance to be able to see what the real world was about, I was interested in getting sage and cerebral career advice as to what my options are as an engineer. And what I found myself doing is showing up with a lackluster response of sort of an intellectual, data-driven approach to getting me with certainty where I want to head to in my career. And so began the inception of my idea. I noticed that, you know, you talked about me as a recruiter, and and that is a big part of our heritage at Design Force. But as I started building this practice and saying, how could we do it differently, where we put people's careers first, that became sort of the impetus or the beginning of the rabbit hole I started digging into about how do you attract, but not only attract, but give people the tools and the platform to be really successful. And then the more important part is to get them to be highly effective and keep them engaged over a prolonged period of time. And so I think that journey started about 20 years ago. And I find myself in refinement every day.
That's so awesome. That is so awesome. I was just speaking at a real estate conference, and I was talking to the realtors about my real life experience with realtors. And one of the things I told them, I let them know, you know, most of you all are so transaction oriented, you don't follow up with your clients. And so therefore, opportunities that you could have, you won't have. And what you're indicating to me is, as you even may help somebody begin a career in a space, you're still in touch with them, helping them recast their ideas and helping them manipulate and maneuver through whatever processes they have to move through as their career continues to unfold. And you're getting better and better and better at providing what they need to keep to achieve. That is amazing. That is absolutely amazing. I want to ask you a deeper question about that, but I got some other questions I want to throw at you. We might even come back to that. Now, you know, this process that we put together today, called Inside the Business Mind, is literally a process that was developed by my friend Darren Marcourt and I. We run an organization called the Roundtable, and at the Roundtable, we focus on three key ideas and concepts that we put all of our members into, we put our members through, and we measure ourselves on how well we do at this, how well we are able to help our members communicate better, how well we're able to help them encourage themselves and others better, and how well we're able to have them literally collaborate and create collaborative processes. And if you think about those key ideas, communication, encouragement, and collaboration, I know they're all important, right? But I want you to pick the one that resonates the most with you and tell me why that resonates most with you.
I mean, collaboration. You know, of course, communication. I mean, you're asking me to pick one of three very difficult things to pick alone by themselves. Right. But, you know, as it pertains to the industry that I serve every day, which is the architecture, engineering, and general contracting community, there's more strength in collaboration than individual brilliance, right? Teams win championships, not just talented players. There is a difference between a good project and a great one, and it often comes down to how well the team can work together through adversity. And at the end of the day, people don't just want a job, they want a sense of belonging, a mission that they can get behind, right?
Yes.
I suppose at Design Force and how we sort of see things is that in the architecture and engineering industry, it really thrives on innovation. And that requires not just great talent, but getting them engaged and motivated as teams, as team members, right? So really, you know, zooming in on collaboration, I think, is the it factor, and it requires the other skills that you've just talked about. But I have always felt like, you know, it's important to put people through sort of team sports earlier in life, not because it matters what sport they play, but more so how to interact with various players to achieve an overall outcome.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. So if you look out there in the engineering and architectural world and you're looking at the future, what you're seeing and what you're seeing coming down the pike, what's going to be the winning formula that you and Design Force are trying to put in front of people to make that differential advantage well into the future?
I mean, speaking of Design Force's unique approach, it's really that our approach isn't about a quick fix. It's more about being invested in long-term solutions that provide both individual success, but also organizational success. And so we really focus on building lasting teams, and you do that through really focusing on retention of great performers, making sure that engagement is at an all-time high, and the holistic growth of talent, right? Not just in one category. Now, remember, historically speaking, Marvin, our industry is built off of individual performers, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, historically speaking, if you go and you research firms that have been around for a long time, I mean, it comes as no surprise that a lot of them are the names of people, right? The
Right.
last names of people.
Right.
And a big part of that is because if you need a really great engineer or a really great architect, back in the day, we didn't have all these cool tools that we have today. And you had to remember, who was the last person that did this really advanced thing that I did? And so oftentimes back in the day, we really relied on individual producers to then translate their knowledge downward to help the collaborative get to where it needs to. But in our upbringing in our industry, a lot of what I've seen is a sort of remnants of not really focusing on collaboration or teamwork or leadership, and really focusing on individual performance. And so we are now in a society and in a specific workforce that has a huge appetite to do competency building and upskilling. And a lot of people are interested in making sure that they have well-rounded skills. And so I don't know if I've totally answered your question, but I think I'm starting to throw some darts at where the bullseye is. And I can talk about this conversation feels very clickbait to me because I'm like very passionate about every part of what we're talking about here today.
Where it's all set up to be that. Exactly. As a matter of fact, what's important is because it's relevant. It's you're dealing with a multi-generational workforce right now that has varying different perspectives of what they want the workspace to be about and what they want to have out of their careers. And everybody is beginning to understand that holistic nature, it has to be there for them. It's not just what do I do at work, it's how does my work respond to my life? It's how does my life respond to my work? And how am I going to be able to, still be, the mother, the father that I want to be, and still be have a scratch golf game if I need to have that, and still work out and still, do the things that I really, really love doing. Hopefully I love doing my job, because that's where you're going to get that true engagement going on. But I think that's it's critical that we start to, and I don't even like the word job anymore because I love career. That's I think that's we need to start thinking about that, and we'd have less people and retention. You and me, I mean, everything you said is just spot on. And like I said, any introduction, it's always because you clearly have the foresight to where you're like the Wayne Gretzky of staff, engineering staffing and architectural staffing, right? You know where the puck is going. You're already there. you know. Um, oh, you had a thought. I see it.
Yeah,
I see some smoke coming off that brain.
Yeah, well, so I mean, it's interesting that you say that because when I first started this practice, I almost wrote the opposite model of what a staffing firm would write.
Right.
You know, 20 years ago, when you were in the world of placement, you had a lot of temps and temp to hire type of companies. And we had some thematically used positions such as CAD drafters as temps to help in the pinch points.
Right.
But my business model was like, we should run away from that, because you're not going to get the ROI that you want. And, and it's not about just filling the role. It's about retaining them. And it's about getting them engaged. And I mean, if you go and look at like the business plan that I had put together back then, it was really about, okay, by the time you've identified that you're in a pinch point in your workforce and you need an additional resource, and then you go and you ask a temp agency to find someone for you, you're going to go and tap into a talent pool that is active seekers that are not dedicated to projects where they're spending some of their time looking for their next gig, if you will. And so I said, by the time the person comes in and they start temping for you and they start giving you an impact, your project is still ongoing. I mean, the life cycle of a project within our industry is much longer than it is in other project cycles in other industries. And so, we saw a big shift from seeing companies focus on how to complete projects to how they achieve their purpose at a higher level.
Yes.
So, when we come to think about the way that we partner with companies, our ideology is that we build lasting teams. We focus on engagement and holistic growth of talent. Our approach isn't about a quick fix. It's about being invested in the long-term solutions that drive both organizational success and individual success.
Right. That is so beautiful. That is so wonderful. Take you to my next question. And I got a feeling I already know the answer to this question, but I got to ask it anyway. What is it? And so I teach a lot about this. Let me set this up this way. I teach a lot about gratitude and helping people understand, even if they've been in the job for 20, 30 years and they've been grinding on them and they've tried to figure out, how can I make it to my high threes, my last three? Can I get there to the point where I can retire successfully? How do I do that kind of thing? And I help them often get back to a thing we call gratitude. Right now, if you can find those moments of gratitude every week or every day in your job, what would those moments be? That thing that you love to actually do on a regular, consistent basis, every day or every week. What is the thing that you just get excited about, the possibility that you get to do during your day?
So let's back up, because we have to see gratitude in a number of different lenses. So I'll start with gratitude being the cornerstone for effective leadership. So when a leader starts to express genuine appreciation, they create a culture where people feel valued, and it fuels productivity and loyalty in ways that you can't begin to start measuring accurately.
Right.
Leadership isn't just about giving direction. It's about recognizing hard work and dedication of your team. Gratitude reminds people that their efforts matter. Now, you ask me about, what makes me grateful. Where does it come from for me? It's two parts. Really, I'm grateful for the trust that my clients place in me, the opportunity to make an impact in their organizations. I mean, by the way, they're giving us a privilege of working on their organization, right? They are right. Inviting us to look at them in the most vulnerable state and trusting us with this privilege. And it's one that we don't take very lightly. So, every challenge is an opportunity to grow. And for that, I am grateful, right? It's easy to be thankful when things are smooth, but true gratitude, it comes from recognizing the lessons in adversity. Now, the other part that I'm grateful for is people give us this privilege of working on their careers with them, right? And by the way, it's how we spend 1/3 to 2/3 of our awake time, right? And it's how we provide for our entire ecosystem for the most part. Most individuals, they rely on their biweekly checks to be able to pay for their mortgages and their rent and the things that they need to be able to live day in and day out. And so when people come to us for advice, it's the same way that you would go to your physician for, healthcare advice. And, we know the privilege that we have sitting on the other side of this when it comes to being their career doctors, for lack of a better expression. And boy, the gratitude for me is not only is it the privilege that we're in the room to help them make decisions and give them the coaching that they need to be able to advance themselves professionally and personally, and hopefully both, but also the gratitude that they express when they've achieved those higher things and they remember some of the advisement that they've had. I mean, boy, that's the stuff that gets me up in the morning, reviewing my happy folder is what I call it, of all these sort of testimonials that kind of come out and say, thanks for helping me unlock this, right? Now, I not only is it for my own gratitude, but I believe in cultivating gratitude, right? So gratitude is something that you cultivate daily. So it's in the little moments, like acknowledging, one of my colleagues' efforts, or celebrating a win, or even thanking somebody for some really difficult and constructive feedback. Right now, we're undergoing performance reviews in our organization. And guess what? I have a review too. And they all do 360 anonymous feedback on me. And I have a few staff members that sit with me at the end of the year and they're like, here's how you did. And here's what we need to be working on. And for me, I'm grateful for those moments, right? And I'm not just saying it the way that like some people say it from a cliche perspective. I have crawled on the backs of people throughout my life to get to where I am in my professional acumen. And I am grateful that they've allowed me the opportunity to shadow them, mentor them, get that feedback. And so the more that we practice gratitude, the more that we open ourselves to an abundance of opportunities, an abundance of ideas, and the relationships are around us, because gratitude helps strengthen these relationships. And by the way, like, you have to mean it, not just say it. I can't say the amount of times I see somebody say, oh, by the way, thanks. And then it does not feel genuine. It does not feel authentic. And I'm like, that didn't do what you hoped that it would do.
Well, they didn't hope it would do anything when they said it. They just said it because they're supposed to say it. That's a whole different ballgame. That's crazy. But I'm sorry to break in. I'm sorry, but that's amazing. I hear you. I understand you. What else you want to say about gratitude?
I mean, gratitude in terms of business. In business, success is rarely a solo journey, right? Yes, I mean, I believe in acknowledging contributions of every single person involved. When I look at companies and I look at workforce, I don't exclude people from their workforce. I don't say, oh, that person who's at this level and above, or this person who's at this level and below. I have a lot of management consultancies that I've studied in my career. And a lot of times they're like, we're going to focus on the leadership team and we're going to put all that we can into that. And then everything's going to be great. And I'm like, no, it happens at all levels in an organization. And so, I believe in acknowledging the contributions that everyone had, even if it's something that seems trivial to you, it actually has an impact for the overall outcome. From colleagues to clients to partners to vendors to other consultants, because none of us achieve any of the success all by ourselves. By the way, I haven't been able to walk by an office in DC, an office building in DC, or any building in DC and point at it and say, ooh, did you see what Johnny did on that project? Look at that. They did the whole thing by themselves. That's really impressive. No one can take that credit in the built environment, right? So I found that gratitude
even
is
though they try to. They can't, try. Even though they try to. Right?
Nobody
that's
believes
my building over there. Like, no, it's not.
No. I find that gratitude is a difference between a transactional relationship and a lasting partnership. So when you genuinely value those that you work with, it strengthens the bond, and it is absolutely a cornerstone to the success of an organization.
That makes perfect sense. That makes perfect sense. Me, you took me some places that I really want to dig deep into. But I got one last question I got to ask you before we go back and sort of really get some other stuff. Um, when you look at yourself 5, 10 years, and you look at your company 5, 10 years from now, where do you want to be? What do you want the universe, the discipline, the space? What do you want them to say and know about what you all and your team have been able to generate and create?
So I see a lot of leaders get asked, where do you want to be 5 years with your company or 10 years from your company? And a lot of them give these like really cliche answers like, we're going to grow this percentage, or we're going to have this many more employees or this many more clients. You're not getting that answer from me.
You know that's not what I'm looking for.
Right.
So,
So,
right.
so from a perspective of industry, right? In the next 5 to 10 years, we're going to see a seismic shift on how companies, firms operate.
Mm-hmm.
Really driven by technological advancements and the growing demand for sustainability, a number of reasons of why these companies have to shift the way that they're looking at a number of things. As they shift, they will have to adapt to being ones that prioritize not just innovation, but the people that drive innovation, right? So as the talent pool in architecture and engineering sectors evolve, the challenge will be less about finding the talent and more about retaining it. And we saw that at the beginning of the pandemic. So firms that invest in their people now are the ones that are certainly going to stand out as the leaders of the future of our industry. So, for me on a personal level, I see the next 5 to 10 years as a period of, I know this is going to sound ironic to you, Marvin, because you know how much of a dork I am, but as a period of continual learning. I mean, the more I grow, the more I can help others grow. And I want to keep challenging myself to think differently, embrace new ideas, and build deeper relationships in the industry. So I've always been focused on building long-term relationships, not just with clients, but with my team. So over the next decade, I aim to create more opportunities for growth within Design Force, ensuring everyone here has a clear path forward. And as we continue to scale, we're thinking about how we can be role models for our industry in the way that we look at our team.
Love that. And role models in the way of people, innovation, and investment and engagement. Those are the words that keep coming out of you, engagement, innovation, and really investing in people and really putting not just financial investing in people, but doing that good emotional work that has to happen to have people feel understood and valued on a team. That's an amazing vision that you have literally, articulated so brilliantly. Um, and that's going to be a great. I can't wait to just. I hope I'm still connected to you, and
Of course.
when we're still doing it, because I want to be a witness, just sitting on the sidelines, going, "Go, Ahmed, go!" Just make it happen. Because I think that you're on the cusp of something that is brilliant in your field, and it's going to make a big difference for a lot of people. Um, if you get to keep doing it, God willing, the creek don't rise. My grandfather would say, you'll get to be here and keep doing it. I know you had to overcome some serious obstacles, physically and in family and all that kind of good stuff. But you're still here, you're still doing it, and you're finding better ways to do it. Anybody who's saying to me that, I'm a continuous learner, I already know it's going to continue to contribute because the more you know, the more you grow, the more you connect, the more you develop relationships, the more people depend on what you know. Next thing you know, you're just the go-to guy. Everybody's got to call you. I got to build a great team, Ahmed. What do I need to do? Because you're going to be known as the person that helps put the right teams in place and the right careers for everybody simultaneously. That's going to be beautiful. I can't wait to see it. That's going to be great.
Thank you.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. So speaking of investing in people, what do you see that companies are going to have to do differently in the future? I know that they're going to have to change the way they think about this individual versus team thing. But how are you going to, how can we encourage them to do more?
Well, I mean, let's just put some things on the table when it comes to workforce trends, right? In the next 5 years, we're going to see more environments. I'm not even going to put like any pretense to that, like hybrid or remote, just more environments in the AEC industry. And firms are going to try to have to figure out how to maintain strong cultures in these setups to lead the pack. The next decade is going to be it's going to introduce a bright, younger, more diverse workforce. I mean, remember, right now we have a quadra-generational workforce in action in real time, right? Firms will need to adapt their strategies to attract and retain top talent across the board, not in just one group of individuals, which will require a really deep focus on inclusion and mentorship. And so on the importance of people or talent, whichever you want to sort of, in the heart of every great building, infrastructure project, or design, there's a talented team of people that are bringing it together from a design perspective. You can have the best technology, the most advanced tools, but without the right people, nothing truly exceptional can get built, right? Truly exceptional. In the AEC industry, people are the greatest asset. So there's been a lot of talk about how do we systemize and how do we have a robot take over specific things. This industry thrives on human creativity and expertise. Hey, you know what I find to be really funny is that I find that a lot of people talk about the ultra creatives existing in architecture and the highly technical folks in engineering. And I think that, I mean, I feel like that's a fable, because some of the most creative individuals that I run into are engineers who are creatively thinking about us a new solution. So I'd like to start, you know, sort of reconditioning our brains in the way that we're thinking about professionals and the unconscious biases that we're deploying on a regular basis.
Sure.
So,
but they're very conscious, because I went to architecture school, all right, for about 4 years before I realized this is not for me. But I understood that everything I had to do had to be approved by an engineer.
Yep.
It didn't really make a difference, you know, how wonderful our designs were and how creative they were and how beautiful they were. And one of the great lessons of life was learning about Frank Lloyd Wright and all the horrible buildings that were allowed to be built under his monocle. Yes, they looked amazing and they were wonderful and they accessed, you know, interior, exterior, all the connections and all that kind of stuff. But what they weren't was usable and functional. And how he got them built, he couldn't get them built today because they never pass anybody's structural models or anything like that. But you're right. You are absolutely right. You know, the coming together of that thought of the engineer, architect, the whole creative and shift on, and actually the more technical shift back to the architecture world is probably smart too. You know, it's like, yeah, we can't afford to be a one-trick pony in this future. You know, you have to be able to do it all. You have to be able to, you know, and not sacrifice anything in the doing of it, which is more efficient anyway.
Yeah, I mean, additionally to that, Coach, I mean, one of the things that goes through my mind is, you know, not an exaggerated number, but I'm going to say thousands instead of tens of thousands. I'm going to say thousands of people that I've met with and done career appraisal with throughout my career. And it's often that I meet architects and engineers and they sit down with me and they talk to me about their careers and they start going through their projects or they start going through their portfolio. And I ask them, I'm like, tell me about this project. And oftentimes you would think that they would go to the final image and say, look how amazing or beautiful this building is.
Right.
And that's not what they do at all. And actually, it's like a rarity. More times than not, they're telling me about the project of the project,
I
right? They're
understand.
talking to me about the experience of completing the project. I worked with this guy and he was great and she was amazing because she got back to me quickly, or I found that this was a really laborious project because this general contractor was missing, or, you know, this owner wasn't responsive. And so it really, you know, the experience that an individual has working in a collaborative to be able to deliver the work that they do. And so what sets successful projects apart is how well teams collaborate.
Yes.
So, you know, when you have a seamless communication between architects and engineers and construction teams, the result is a project that exceeds expectations for stakeholders that are involved.
You know what is brilliant about what you just said is us normals out here looking at this whole thing, looking at the finished result, have no clue about how the cake is made. You know, we walk into a space and we like it or we don't like it. You know, but we have no idea about what went into it. And what you're helping me come to is the understanding that, you know, there's a whole lot that goes into whatever the final result we experience is, whether that's the fine dining that we experience, or the music that we experience, or the spaces that we experience, or the parks and recreation stuff that we experience. There's a whole lot a whole lot of collaboration that has to go into that final result that we have no clue and no understanding of how it is. We're just used to just the luxury of it all, or the experience of it all, when the final product is done. And it would be good. I hope everybody watches this show, because it'd be good for our people to get a different perspective on the fact that, you know, this does take more than one person. You know, you may hire an architect and, you know, he might seem to be the front guy who gets it all done. You may hire a surgeon. He might seem to be the front guy that gets it all done. You may hire even a dentist, you know, but in the reality is it takes a whole team, and how they process things and so on and so forth. I listen to a lot of uh, economic analysis on various different industries. And I will tell you how one economist breaks down the same industry is different than how another economist will break down the same industry. And they'll give you a whole different perspective on the thing, just because of how they've seen the experience of it all show up.
Yeah, I mean, look, you know, we can talk about sort of what's ahead of us in the built environment, but one thing is true. We have an absolute looming talent shortage and an increase in project demands. So
Yeah.
the architecture and engineering industries will need to go through a crazy amount of innovation, not only in design, but in how they structure their organizations and prepare these shifts in the way that they do work, right?
Yes.
And so, you know, to be able to accomplish becoming the employer of choice, because remember, when you look at the built environment, it's a really intimate group of individuals across the United States that actually do this work, right?
Right.
Real deal organizations in the AE space that are not doing sort of, you know, your small little like shed type projects, but, you know, the ones that are the business to help get most of our projects built is what, 1.5 million of us in the US,
Yeah.
maybe two, maybe there's 150,000 firms in the United States. We're right now operating, let's call it very conservative, 3% unemployment rate. I know it's lower than that, but let's call it 3% unemployment rate. That means we're basically totally at capacity.
Right.
Right. Of the talent that's out there.
Right.
And so if you're not focused on how to become the employer of choice today, that train
You won't be here tomorrow.
That train is going to fly by your stop, because it's a high-speed rail, by the way. And your company will just evolve into something else or devolve and go away. And so I know that we prepare a lot of organizations and guide them through these shifts. But, you know, what do I really want? Our focus as we continue to think about the challenges and the resiliency of our industry is we have a really demanding industry with really tight project deadlines and really complex solutions that we're doing for what seems to be pretty basic projects. By the way, our naked eye can be fooled by what we're seeing in the built environment, what's going on between the walls and the amount of systems that are going into buildings these days.
Yeah.
So, you know, from a perspective of materiality, energy consumption, sustainability, actually optimizing and testing it and making sure it works right, you know, like commissioning and retro commissioning and looking at where failure points could happen with a building, they're getting more and more challenging, more and more sophisticated. And so these challenges are going to be really tough to tackle when you have an incoherent team. So your thought as a building leader right now, if you are leading an architecture firm or an engineering firm, you have to be thinking about the strength of a firm being measured on how well its people handle problems or adversity, right? You have to be able to say, okay, let's say a project does go sideways. How fit is my team? Saying it in a different way, and I dislike making sports analogies, but you know, we see championships won during adversity when we're in triple overtime and it's raining outside or snowing outside. Which team was more ready? Which team was ready for the hardest period or quarter or part of the game where more showed up, right? And more challenges started to happen. And so what I think a lot about is the value of mentorship and the knowledge and the expertise being translated down from one generation to the next, and ensuring that the industry continues to thrive and adapt itself to the new challenges by making sure that all voices within the company are able to provide insight from what they see from their vantage point. And so it's, you know, culture is the invisible architecture of any firm, right?
Yep.
Culture is, you know, I think that a strong people-first culture, it fosters innovation, it drives excellence, and it creates a sense of loyalty that a lot of people have been using that word sort of in a very cliche way, and I wonder if they mean it the way that they mean it, right?
Yeah. So they don't know how to mean it, because if you don't experience it, then you're basing what you think about it based on other experience, things that you've read about, people that have introduced a concept or an idea to you. That's why we're having a lot of pushbacks right now with diversity, equity, and inclusion, right? We're having a lot of pushback because people didn't really understand it when they said they were going to adopt it, didn't really have a clue what it might look like or be like. And so they never really put full effort and energy into adopting it. And now we're going, well, it doesn't work. Well, why doesn't it work? Because there's no academic or social reason why it wouldn't work. There's no real data that prove that it doesn't work. It's just a feeling, and it's because, you know, we get the feeling obviously for a lot of the wrong reasons. You know, they're not really driven by actual information. You know,
Yeah,
just
you know,
guts.
I mean, look, you know, Coach, one of the things is we know that we're not in the right place in culture for our industry right now. And the biggest part of the reason we know it from an evidence perspective is we got into a place where employee confidence was high, knowing that they had an abundance of jobs out there in 2020, 2021, 2022. And what happened? We had a great resignation happen.
That's
One
right.
out of 4 or 1 out of 5, pick the number, whatever statistic you want to believe,
Right.
quit their job in those 2 years.
Right. And the other ones are quitting in place.
And others are quiet quitting, or or they're quietly getting fired now, or they're it's very clear that engagement is a big deal, and engagement can only occur when you have a cohesive culture. So, I feel like if we actually put the real time and credence into that, I think maybe we can move the needle and actually make sure that it's not a cliche word.
Well, I am absolutely positive that in this industry, you will be moving that needle, and I'm absolutely sure about it, because the people I know who are involved in the industry right now, they just don't have it. They don't
Yeah.
have it. They're not going to make it. They're not going to make the long term. They're not going to be there. But you'll be the champ. You'll be the champ that's not talking it. That's just not talking it, but walking it. And because you have that kind of integrity and that kind of stick to itness, and that's a great thing. You got to have that. You got to have that. And I think your team has just performed with excellence and will continue as long as you have those core principles and ideas underneath you. There's no way you could lose. It's impossible. So thank you. Thanks for coming on the show. I'm going to put you backstage for a minute, and then don't go anywhere because we have some things to talk about.
Hey, Marvin, thank you for having me. I appreciate you, and we love your show here at Design Force, and keep getting inside that business mind. It's been really great getting the lessons learned from some of the other people that you've hosted on your show, and appreciate you putting me with that cohort. Really, really do.
Outstanding. Outstanding. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I told you we only bring the sharpest inside the business mind. We bring talent, we bring information, we bring ideas that are going to move the workforce and move the culture forward in a big way and in a grand way. Not necessarily a fast way, but in the right way. And so I'm glad to have Ahmed on the show today. I hope you will take the chance to, when we air the show live, put any questions that you have in the chat. Make sure that you engage. As all things, we make sure we're real business friendly. So don't feel like you can't put, an idea about your next upcoming event that you want to put in the chat, or tell us where you're coming from and what the name of your company is in the chat, or any kind of information that leads back to your chat, your organization, or whatever, because we're a real business friendly show. I say that again. So watch the show, participate, engage. You can find us on YouTube, LinkedIn, where else? Facebook and Instagram. And so we're going to continue to grow this thing and continue to move forward. Thank you very much. We're going to call it quits for the evening. Thank you so much for coming on, and we'll see you guys later inside the